Welcome back to Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for one of the most explosive editions ever of the Corkscrew climb, the Tour Down Under. Huge gaps, GC lead changes, early finish. They actually kicked it off. Well, they're a bit quicker today, actually, right, compared to the start yesterday. But to remind you of the profile, 3 categorized climbs, 117k stage, so easily under 3 hours, starting in Norwood in the east of Adelaide, going up Norton Summit, sort of not that steep a climb, then into the hills, looping around the hills, doing Checker Hill, 2k 6.4% with some steeper sections in there, and then the fast Gorge Road descent into the base of Corkscrew. If I had to do a European comparison to Gorge Road, I would compare it even stylistically to that road where Broe and Luis Leon and Astana were pulling in Paris-Nice Stage 8 2021 when Roglic was just sitting off the back and couldn't quite get back on. Very similar, super fast. You want the draft, and positioning is really important there before the Corkscrew, which is 2.4Ks, 9%. Think it may be 8.5%, but there is a really steep section in the middle, and then it levels off at the end. And then there's a 6K, the shortest descent I've seen them use. Actually, it was barely 6Ks from the top, and it was almost all descending except for this last right-hand corner, which is like 350 to go in Campbelltown. The women's was longer, so it would be relatively easier for a group to stay away. It really isn't that technical a descent. It is an aero plus pedaling descent. But yeah, they had a breakaway finally today, Benji. So the stage was a little bit sharper at the start.
Exactly. The break was a two-man break, including Fabio Fellini from Astana and Honore for EF Education first. So basically, the F team, which had their GC decapitated, was going in the break now with Honore, and Astana, who is celebrating Moscon's 23rd position in GC on their social media, is also in the breakaway. So just two teams that aren't that relevant GC-wise, and they take the KOM points and the intermediate sprint first two places, but who was going to take third at the KOM and third at the intermediate sprints. And KOM-wise, it went to the man that we kind of criticized for going for KOM, or at least we noted that it wasn't very useful. And I'd argue it's not very useful again. Luke Plapp took 3 points there, making him equal in the KOM standings at the start of this race. Well, at the top of the KOM point there. They had 10 points after that together with Jay Vine, who also had 10 points. But Jay Vine was destined to take points on the last climb. So when it comes to those standings, I didn't understand why Luke Plapp was once again going for it, because it was so unrealistic for him to take the jersey from it anyway. So anyway, I thought it was still worth it for Luke Plapp to go for GC at that point, personally. Now, after that KOM point came the intermediate sprints. I just said it. The first two places went for the breakaway, so the third spot was the only spot left. Caden Groves taking 2 seconds, so 1 second at both the intermediate sprints. That would move him up a tiny bit in GC before we got to Corkscrew. Whether he would remain in that spot was yet to be seen. Now, the peloton would not get to Corkscrew without some people hitting the floor, unfortunately. And it's a rider that I was quite bullish for, and definitely you were as well. Corbin Strong, the New Zealand Zebra, and he crashed together with Haddington Wood, the British guy, just before Corkscrew in that descent you spoke about. Now, there was something weird there, because on one end, yeah, Corbin Strong crashing is unfortunate because he was actually close in GC, 15 GC before this stage, if my memory serves me right, so what's going to matter for this stage, which really sucks that he's out just before that climb starts, because positioning is key. And positioning is key for Dennis as well. And I think Robin McEwen, you mentioned it to me before this podcast recording started, mentioned that in the run-in towards Corkscrew climb, Rohan Dennis was seen with a bike that didn't have a number on it. So must have had a bike change, was near the back of the group as well. So positioning was not really perfect going into the climb. And positioning is key here, because we're going towards a climb that ramps up swiftly and has a fast descent towards it. So your positioning at the bottom will be vital, because the speed going into it will be mad. And honestly, there's moments on Corkscrew where you could say, okay, maybe if it goes a bit slower into the base and a team doesn't take over, you can save your positioning. But that wasn't the case here, eh? Some teams had a big plan. And who was the team that took it up from the bottom?
Well, AG2R, they had O'Connor in really, really good position. Vine was basically sitting on O'Connor's wheel. Jaco Alula had Simon Yates in really good position. And yeah, it's the Jumbo team. You could just see in the run-in Dennis trying to move up, and that would have cost a lot of energy. But speaking of ramping up Zwiftly, to use Benji's words,
Jesus,
ramp up your indoor training. You like that one?
that was amazing.
Yeah. Ramp up your indoor training with the Zwift hub available in North America, Europe, and the UK. We hear you, Australians. I'll forward it through to Zwift that the Australians want the Zwift hub too. Maybe in the future, no promises, but ride 25 Ks on Strava. Join the challenge to unlock $50, £50, or €50 off the Zwift hub, and also go in for a chance to win a whole lot, 4 figures worth of indoor cycling tech. It has 9 days left, so plenty of time, and the Zwift Hub's automatic resistance will make you feel every climb and descent throughout Zwift's virtual worlds. Go and check it out through the link down below. But yeah, AJ2R, clearly, I spoke to O'Connor after the stage yesterday. He said he had good shape and he did good numbers on Nettle Hill, but he was caught up in that crash or just chain drop with Matthews. And he actually said that Matthews, kind of did have a right to be annoyed. A guy, and we've been seeing this on TV, guys have been jumping into the gravel and then just hopping back in.
Yeah.
And apparently that happened to Bling, who was in good position. So I can understand Matthew's frustration with that sort of thing happening. But regardless, O'Connor wanted to obviously make a statement today with the hardest climb in the race, and the AJ2R took over, but they didn't have they didn't really have the horsepower when it got really steep. We saw Bennett move up and Hirschi, and it was UAE who started to really launch it. First with Hirschi, you can see Vines on the radio once, twice, 3 times, obviously saying, pick it up, harder, harder. And Dennis is already slipping positions, 50th wheel. And if you're there at that point, GC's over because there'll be splits. And if you don't make it into G2, you'll be in trouble. So Hirschi went, then Bennett pulled hard. And then we were into the switchbacks and Vine just launched with Yates in the wheel. And it was very similar to the climb yesterday, actually. Vine pushing with Yates in the wheel, a predictable outcome. Were you surprised? I don't know, Bilbao's just so consistent all year when you look at his results. I was surprised he was the only guy that could follow, actually.
I agree. I was expecting perhaps the riders that we saw yesterday, like Hindley, who was strong on that climb, to be able to be there. But it was really the distance that the attack, the initial move of Vine already made together with Simon Yates was quite significant. And then we looked back with the camera, and Peo Bilbao was the only rider that we saw in the distance. Now, I didn't expect Peo Bilbao to catch them on the climb itself. I don't know why, but even when it comes to like the gradient evening out a bit towards the top, I would have expected him to be the one that catches them in the descent, because descendings he's a demon descender. While when it comes to the climbing, I think Simon Yates and Vine definitely still have an engine also on the rolling part of the climb. So it was kind of surprising that Bilbao actually caught him, I would argue, in my opinion, towards the end of the climb. But he did that on that rolling part towards the top. Those 3 riders were going to make it to the top. Vine once again taking K1 points, so flaps of the crowning there. So that's not happening. So when it comes to the rest, the second group, Matthews seemed to be pretty good in there. So what would have happened if Matthews yesterday didn't have that issue? Would we have seen Simon Yates in the move yesterday? Would we have seen Simon Yates in the move today? It's also curious, but I do
think about what would
expect
have
Simon
happened.
Yates. Okay.
Yates doesn't pull on the descent. He sits on. Bling pulls from behind, and maybe the gap looks completely different.
Yep. True.
So, and maybe Bling would have been in the priority position. Maybe he didn't get all the resources today helping him position as well, because Yates is now their A leader. That mechanical huge impact on the race and how it played out.
Yeah, but I do expect, even if, for example, a Simon Yates is sitting on that Bilbao and Vine would have kept the engine going in the descent, because Bilbao, demon descender, and Vine, honestly, you can say what you want. Yeah, yes, the guy came from Zwift Academy into cycling and so forth, but the guy had a career before that as like a semi-pro, Nero Continental and so forth, got to the pro division through Zwift Academy in that sense, and he's actually not bad at descending, because that's always a doubt when it comes to the riders that come through that circuit. But let's be honest about it. If you can follow Bilbao on a descent, that's basically confirmation that you can descend. Now, Bilbao didn't go all out in a descent, right? It's not like he tried to instantly
Well, it's not
drop them
that
in a
technical.
descent. Yeah,
You
I
have
think
to
that's
you
part
have
of
to
it.
work together. It's a rolling pace line on like minus
Yeah,
2-3% for the most part, and that's where Vine. He's not 60 kilos.
yeah,
He's a bigger guy. He's like 6 foot plus. That's why he's so lethal after the climbs, because he's pushing 400 watts on the false flat downhill. It
yeah,
makes a big difference compared to Simon Yates, who's getting punished a bit more relatively on those
yeah.
downhills. It was a bit strange for a moment on Corkscrew here. She was kind of pulling behind when Vine went. Maybe it was soft pulling, letting the gap open. I'm not sure. He'd already pulled, but then Bilbao's the only one that went across. Seb just wanted to let everyone have a go today. He was actually in group 2. You can see him. He was there with Hindley and co. Anyway, Descent, they keep working. No reason not to. It's pretty obvious what's going to happen. Dennis, no one can really see where he is. You can't know for sure he's not in a group 2 because there's no front motorbike on this descent, and there's also no back motorbike on
Yeah.
group 2 or group 3 really. We saw some footage of a Schmid group with Quickstep. There's just helicopter shots through a forest, so you can't say for sure where Dennis is if you're in the UAE car. And so Vine just keeps it down, goes into Phil Liggett said that his inexperience meant he stuffed up the final, and I was like, he was riding to go into the leader's jersey very obviously.
Exactly.
Like, if he starts finessing with 1,500 meters or doesn't lead it out, then Yates is also going to finesse. Or they attack him and they gain seconds on the road. So he leads out into the corner, trying to keep it going, and Bilbao comes over the top of him and wins the sprint, which is what Bilbao want to do. Like, he just is, as I said, like, if I read out his results last year, like, of course, the guy is not going to win a Grand Tour most likely, but, UAE Tour 3rd, Tirreno 9th,
Yeah.
Basque Country 5th with a stage, Alps 4th with a stage, Giro 5th with multiple stage top 10s, Polonia 3rd with a second on a stage, Deutschland 2nd with a stage. That's all year he's performing to some level. Montreal and Quebec 12th and 9th. Like, very consistent rider and valuable rider, nearly 2,000 UCI points, and he kicks it off here
But
with a
man,
stage win that was perfect for him.
DNF the Schwalbe Classic at the start of the year. I'm sorry, but that clearly
Yeah,
ends
that's
his
actually pretty
streak of.
bad.
Ooh la 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 la. Nah, nah. On a serious note, once again delivering. He was delivering in GC as a consequence of this as well, because GC wise, this delivers Jay Vine in the lead of this race. Because you said it, Jay Vine was trying to secure GC by going early there, and he basically does it. Because the two closest riders in GC now after this race are the two companions that are together with him, which is Bilbao and Simon Yates. Jay Vine in the lead with 15 seconds on Bilbao, 16 seconds on Simon Yates. And outside of that, there's a major gap. Like, we're talking about 45 seconds to place 4, and that's because Jay Vine kept it going there. So he's basically isolated GC to the people he was with, and those are people that are not going to have it easy in the final stages of the Santos Tour Down Under to take over GC from Jane Vine here. So something has to happen. Some strategy needs to work out for these riders. They need to drop Jay Vine somehow. But we saw that it can happen quickly. Michael Matthews endured a mechanical and was dropped out of GC. I don't hope Jay Vine has a mechanical, of course, because he definitely deserves whatever comes to him here at the Santos Tour Down Under. And he's starting off with a banger of a year at UAE. Let's be honest about it. Aussie champ TT. And now when it comes to the Tour Down Under, he's already in the lead of GC with 2 stages to go. And it's not exactly the most terrifying stages for Bilbao and Yates if you're Vine, right?
Um, I'd be a little bit nervous about Bilbao because his
Yeah.
sprint is good. I'd be a
Mm-hmm.
little bit nervous. But as you said, 28-second gap. I just checked while you were talking. I was about to say, that has to be one of the biggest ever gaps from Corkscrew to the finish in Campbelltown. And when Evans won solo, which, with no help, it kind of is almost more impressive, but
Yeah.
it might have been a late attack. He won by 15 seconds. So Yeah, huge gaps. I didn't expect it. So it really is Bilbao's the only one in touching distance, because I don't see, because like Bilbao does have the capacity to take intermediate sprints if they're uphill or kind of unpleasant. Tomorrow,
Yeah.
that's not the case. And on stage 5, the bunch, if they make it really hard, can be thinned out. The Radler second one, for example, is at the start of an uphill, maybe. So Bilbao is the big threat. I was thinking these two, Simon Yates and Bilbao, they had sprinted against each other before in a smaller race, Tour de France stage 12. Yates beat Bilbao in a break to Bagna de Bigorre in a sprint. Bilbao's sprint seems to have improved since then and gets the best of Yates. But yeah, Vine now, 15 seconds out of Bilbao, 16 seconds out of Yates. Sheffield is down into 4th on 45 seconds. Schmidt 5th on 46 seconds. Hayter 6th on 50. Sven-Erik Bistrom 54 seconds. Tiberi 8th on 58. O'Connor on a minute in 9th. And Jorge Izaguirre 101. Same time as Schachmann and Hirschi in 10th, 11th, 12th. KOM Vine has it. Points, it is Bling goes 2 points ahead of Vine. Bling should take that out, one would think, unless he struggles tomorrow. Sheffield still leading the Zwift Young Riders jersey, 13 seconds ahead of Antonio Tiberi. And just a shout out to Nutnail Tesfazion, 6th, by the way, in today's stage. Very nice, versatile rider. I'm keen to see him at La Guelia, all those sort of races for Trek. Just a really good rider.
Yeah, I think so as well. Definitely showing like in the behind the scenes of this, because also like Milan Vader came back from that injury at Catalunya, I
This
think.
is almost his best result, right? Or
I
Tour of the
think so as
Alps.
well. 8th in this race, in the stage itself, really strong result. Is the kind of rider where we didn't know where he was going, because he had a different way into the sport. I think he was like a mountain bike rider and then went into the team of Jumbo Visma and had that major crash last year that basically threatened his life for a while. So glad that he was able to get his life back up to rails, but also that he was able to get back on the bike, and also that he's able to get back results right now. Because yeah, I agree, this is one of his best results, 8s on this stage. Sure,
First
it's
top 10
not
in any race.
exactly. So I definitely rate it quite high. But I also want to talk about Jay Vine a tiny bit more. We know that he's got the Giro d'Italia on his schedule. We know that he's shown now in the Aussie ITT National Championships. Yes, Jay Vine can time trial now. We kind of had the idea that he could, but he didn't have the perfect bike nor the setup at Alpecin. So he needed UAE to set that right for him to be able to show it. And he did that so far. Now, not the greatest time trials in the world, as in like the level of the riders in it, but I would say that it does show that his time trial is good enough. At least Vlasov level time trial. I think it's better, but at
What is it?
least
Better.
worst case scenario, Vlasov
Yeah.
time trial.
Yeah.
And from that point, we go to a Giro d'Italia that is with Remco, with Thomas, with Roglic, all signed up for the race. Now, if Thomas shows up in Santos Tour Down Under level right now, then he's going on a holiday in Italy for 3 weeks, because this man dropped before Corkscrew
Thomas
today
will be good.
has been completely useless for the team, I would argue, at certain points
No,
in
he
this
pulled the
race as
front.
well.
He pulled the front
Did
for
he?
a little bit today. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Geraint. Sorry, Geraint. I apologize completely.
More than some other guys have.
That's true. That's true. I know who you're referencing. Now, I would say I would still like to see one World Tour 1 week race where he's also in the GC lead before I can 100% say, oh, Jay Vine is co-leader with Almeida in the Giro. But
Come
I would
on,
argue
man.
that he deserves it. He deserves that position. But I think he's doing Tirreno, right? I'd like to see a good GC at Tirreno.
Tirreno and Catalunya.
And Algarve.
Yeah.
And Murcia, but that's not going to say much
Algarve
about his
has
GC.
a TT, right?
Yes.
Usually does. Yeah,
Correct.
final stage is a TT. So, and it's 24 Ks too.
Write it down.
I mean, isn't tactically having Vine as a co-leader the best thing Almeida could hope for? Vine goes with the initial attackers, sits on, and Almeida diesels back. Isn't that?
I agree.
So, like, tactically,
But
I mean, makes sense
if that's
as well.
the case, Does Almeida not hinder potentially Vine taking more time in a certain stage if he's actually on top?
I mean, yeah, Vine should, like, if he feels good and can drop Remco, probably should.
Yeah, but that's also a big
Who do
if
you think
though.
will have a better TT, him or Almeida?
Oh, I thought you were going to say him and Remco. I was like, mate, come on, get out of here. Him
I
and
reckon Vine
Almeida.
will beat Remco in that steep TT.
If we take a look at Joao Almeida 2 years ago, his time trial was really strong,
He
but
ain't on
last
quick
year it
step.
wasn't. Exactly. His time trial at UAE hasn't been very strong, I would say. So compare that to Jay Vine, whose time trial is
Hasn't been in the wind tunnel.
new. Exactly. But it's also not skyscrapingly high yet. So maybe that wind tunnel can change it. Maybe it doesn't have the biggest impact either. I'd say it should have a proper impact on his time trial, or at least turn it up a tiny bit. I think Jay Vine's time trial might be better than Almeida at the Giro d'Italia. Now, we might not see it at Tirreno yet because that's still early. Depends on when they can fit in wind tunnel practice and so forth before then, because Algarve, Murcia, and so forth in February, not much time to do that in between. Only like the last week of January to do that, and he's probably going to stay in Santos in Australia for a few more days. So I think, in my opinion, he should be co-leader at the Giro, but I'd like to see it at Tirreno first.
Okay. I mean, is Pog doing Tirreno? He normally does. Anyway, we'll
I
see.
think he's doing Paris-Nice this time. Am I
Pog.
stupid?
I think you might be.
I am stupid.
Pog never does ASO races except for Liège and the Tour.
That's true.
UA always do the RCS races with the big guns usually when they can. Anyway, fine, looking good for GC. Bilbao, I think tomorrow doesn't offer. Well, this is the thing. Let's look at tomorrow's stage from Port Willunga to Willunga, but with no Willunga Hill. I'll be heading down to the race in the Zwift van, checking out the race. So we might have to record a bit later. Benji apparently.
Wait. The Zwift van. Does that mean that you need to ride on your indoor trainer in the van to make the car move?
No.
Would have been nice.
Not doing that. I don't know. It's a normal car, I think. Normal van. Someone's also made a beer with my face on it, so I'm keen to check that out at Clarenvale. I think it's called Penny Red Beer Company. Anyway, not sponsored, obviously. But I'll go taste that tomorrow. 133 Ks. There's just rollies. There's a 1K 3.2% climb. That's the finish line. Bilbao, there's no way Bilbao should beat Bling on that. But Bilbao, like Pog could win that finish.
Yep.
Bilbao's not Pog, but could Bilbao take 4 seconds? I wouldn't be surprised. He shouldn't, really. With Bettiol, with Strong, with Matthews, with Ewan, actually. After an easy day, Ewan on 1K 3% is actually really good as well.
Yep.
So Boggio Ewan will be there, and this is the big stage for him. So Bilbao shouldn't really take time there. Lofty is the one that's a lot harder, but I would say that UAE have the strongest team for Lofty. Covey, Hirschi, Bennett, Vine, all in pretty good shape, and Finn Fisher Black to control early. I'm probably missing someone else, short backs. They got probably the strongest team here, and Bilbao have got, Susselin and Bauhaus and, Herminator.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough for them. So it would have to be bonuses. Bilbao would have to come third tomorrow, take an intermediate on Sunday, and then win the stage with Vine taking no bonuses. So it's unlikely.
Tomorrow should on paper also be the stage where Ethan Hayter competes for the victory, but positioning will be key for him on that final. We never know if he's going to be able to compete or not, because we've seen throughout this Santos Tour Down Under that he competes and non-competes on the most odd moments during the race. But that being said, on paper, the stage fits him. So on paper, he should be there at the final. Caleb Ewan I actually agree with, because does positioning matter less on this finish than a flat sprint? Because you've got some time to move up in the final, but you're using energy to do so.
1K 3%, obviously they're still going really fast, but there's more likely that there's maybe a 3-second period where no one takes over on the front. And when the bunch loses momentum, you can move up perhaps a bit easier. Now, the same you can do in a flat sprint at 60 kph if you freewheel into a corner and take a big risk. But yeah, I think Ewan's really good for tomorrow. it really, really is a sprint I think that he should be good on. And it'll be against him and Bling. Also, Bling is good on it. So yeah, it should be. We've got 3 or 4 strong Bling hater. Ewan, I'm missing someone probably as well. I'd like to see how Tesfatsion goes as well after an easier stage. It's a nice
Hugo
group.
Page.
Ugo Page, yeah. He should be fine. We have glossed over one guy, and you won't see it in the results, but Victor Lefay was probably 4th strongest on the climb today on
Really?
Corkscrew. Yeah, he just obviously couldn't contest the sprint when he got
Yeah.
caught by Group 2 behind, and if you're sitting solo on the Montacute descent, you're toast. But, contract year at Cofidis, 27. He's very good at those punchy efforts, but he's just not, elite at them.
I think I'm gonna go for the New Zealand Zebra for this stage. I think Corbin Strong is gonna take that stage home. He's got the relative uphill speed as well, next to being pretty fast as we've seen at the intermediate sprints. Now I don't know what the crash will have done towards Corbin Strong. He did lose quite some time in GC today.
Nah, he didn't look too
So
banged up. So hopefully
okay.
he's okay.
Hopefully indeed he's okay. I do want to see him compete on that stage. And when it comes to other riders that I see that could also compete here, it's a bit difficult, Like
Yeah, Strong should win. Now,
Steimler
lead
in
out, dude.
yeah.
G, Impy, Clark. That's really good, said Beric.
What, G
G,
MP Clark?
G,
Oh,
Impy,
Derek
and
G.
Clark.
Ooh,
Yeah.
whoa.
G's like been riding really well as well.
I thought you said Geraint as in G. I was so
No,
confused.
Derek G, the Canadian track guy. He's
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
quite
yeah.
good. They got a good lead out for Strong.
Yeah, I believe so as well. So Corbin Strong's my pick. My Bilbao pick turned out all right. So
Yeah.
gonna keep going. The streak is on.
Okay, that's the stage tomorrow. We're thinking it's a sprint. Definitely shouldn't be a breakaway. The Uni SA team, or what's it called? Yeah, Uni SA team is unfortunately for Ewan down to 4 riders because all the track guys DNF'd pretty much yesterday.
No offense, but
yeah, I know. Like that's what I mean. Like, wouldn't it have been better? All the guys already mentioned, Robot and Saunders and Schultz. Like a couple of them making it into G2 or whatever today, or fighting yesterday. Wouldn't have that been exciting? Like,
yeah.
no offense to the track guys, but like, what are we doing here? Anyway, we'll see tomorrow. Should be a sprint, and hopefully Ewan does reward his selection for this race. Until then.